All right, good afternoon. I'm here with Frank Maloney, and we're going to have a brief conversation today about this weekend's boxing action that's just gone on, and especially having a bit more of an in-depth look at what happened with Chisora and David Haye. So, first of all, welcome, Frank. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. The first thing I just really wanted to have a chat about was about Derek Chisora himself and what you made of not the press conference antics, but more to do with what actually happened before the fight. You know, the slap, the spitting of water in Vladimir's face. What did you make of it all?
Well, look, everyone knows Derek Chisora's personality. He's he's a street boy. In other words, he's sort of gang mentality culture. You know, and you've got to look at his background, where he sort of comes from. I mean, you know, he was born in Zimbabwe. He lived under the rule of Robert Mugabe for a hell of a long time. He came over here, I think he's been over here for about 10 to 12 years now. So he was more educated sort of over there. And over there, he has to, you know, he probably has to survive, fight to survive, to be bully mentality to survive. And he's continued with that. And, you know, I think fighters and people do them sort of things, misbehave, let's say, out of the ordinary, if they're very nervous, if they're worried, if they've got fear. I think all fighters need a certain amount of fear in their body to fight. But some let it out in a different way. Obviously, you know, the people around Chisora know how explosive he is, because previously he's had a bit of trouble with some other fighters. I think he kissed a fighter in his early days, in his early career. He's pushed a fighter before now, I believe, you know, and he's bit a fighter, as we all know. So we know that this guy is not, shall we say, all a picnic. There's maybe a sandwich missing out of the basket. Who knows? But so you have to expect something out of the ordinary with Chisora. And we certainly got it this weekend.
Yeah, we certainly did. And what did you think of the fight itself?
The fight itself, to me, was a dull fight. I actually believe Chisora had no chance when it started, when it was first made. But as I watched the fight, I realised his tactics were working. He was pushing and making Klitschko fight at his pace. And what had surprised me, I mean, I study heavyweights, and I study certain parts of the heavyweight body. And, you know, I see it slowing down, and I know the fighter is starting to get past his by-sell date. And you could see that with with Klitschko. He was definitely past his by-sell date, but he had the ring experience, the sort of know-how around the ring, how to survive. And he knows which obviously Chisora doesn't really have, because of his inexperience. Only, was it 13 or 14 fights he's had, off the top of my head. But he used the right tactics, making Klitschko's legs work for the whole 12 rounds. And I believe if he threw clusters of punches instead of looking for one big punch, he could have caused the biggest upset in the history of boxing. Someone in the next 3 fights is going to beat Klitschko. He's ready for the taking.
Well, on that note, obviously, last time we talked, we had a chat about David Price, who obviously you manage and promote. And you said you had a blueprint for him to go for a world title in 18 months' time, roughly. But having seen that fight and how Vitali...
I would put him in there tomorrow.
Would you really?
I actually believe if he had the confidence and the belief in himself, which I do think David had, he would extend and beat the Klitschko that we saw on Saturday night. He is definitely past his by-sell day, the big doctor.
Fair enough. Okay, so that's interesting. So, I mean, on that note, will you be pushing for that now, or do you think that the antics of Haye and Chisora has put the K brothers off British fighters altogether?
No, I actually think the antics, if they ever made Haye and Vitali, Klitschko, it would be worth twice the amount of money it was worth before Saturday night's fight and before Saturday night's antics. That has added a few noughts on the end of the old check to make that fight. You know, you can either look at it one way. It was a very bad night for boxing, or it was a very clever ploy to get interest in the fight. There's only one fight out there people see, the brothers fight themselves, which you're never going to see, unfortunately, and what boxing actually needs and what American TV needs. You need one heavyweight champion, one guy to rule the division, not two brothers who will never fight each other. At least when you have other champions, like when you had Lennox Lewis, Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis, Mike Tyson, Lennox Lewis and Riddick Bowe, we actually managed to get some of these fights made. We never got the Bowe fight made, obviously, but at least it causes an interest, and at least you try to make these fights. The brothers have never tried to fight each other, which is very bad for boxing. And the only fighter that can draw any revenue is obviously Klitschko versus Haye.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously, you know, they're not going to fight each other. But I mean, what do you think of them as champions? Do you think they're good for the sport, or do you find them interesting even?
No, I actually think they're bad for the sport. They're great fighters. Listen, they're bad for the sport, they're great fighters but bad for the sport. It's two different things. They're bad for the sport because they've divided the titles up. There's never no chance for the two of them meeting to unify the belt. That's why people are not interested in the heavyweight division.
Yeah.
It's not boxing, it's Klitschko business now.
Yeah, fair point. Okay, well, just a couple more questions. I mean, we haven't touched on the brawl yet after the press conference. I mean, what are your thoughts on it? I mean, who was to blame? Were both parties to blame?
Well, Haye overstepped the mark at the press conference. If he was at the press conference in whatever capacity, if he was there as an observer, he should have just sat there and shut up. If he was there working for the TV, he should have asked sensible questions, because people are saying that he was working for a TV company on the night. If he was there to cause nuisance value, he did, and he should be punished for it, because it wasn't his occasion, it was Derek's occasion. Derek had just gone 12 rounds with the world champion and surprised all of us, and he was there. But again, as I said, you have to know the characters. You have to know both characters. You've got to remember, David Haye is a street boy from Bermondsey. He might wear Versace suits, he might wear nice clothes and drive a nice car because he's earned a lot of money. But you can take the boy out of the street, but you can't take the street out of the boy.
Yeah, fair enough. Just on that note, what do you think will happen to the two of them? Do you think they'll get bans?
They should be banned for life. The British Boxing Board of Control and the world governing bodies have to make a statement to the rest of the world to say that we will not tolerate this sort of behaviour in boxing. We do not want this sort of behaviour in boxing. We do not want to give ammunition to the anti-boxing brigade and the liberals out there and the lefties who like to see our sport banned. So they should send a clear-cut message out to everybody else and the world. This will not be tolerated.
Fair enough. Okay, just a couple other things. Thanks for your time today. The one final question I really want to ask you is moving away from that and just thinking back to, you know, David Price and, you know, and what he's been up to. And obviously he challenged Tyson Fury. Tyson is now organised to fight Rogan. What do you think about that matchup?
Well, do you know what? Mick Hennessy got lucky. You know, in politics, if they want to dump something out there that's not very good, but just get it through, they dump it when there's like something more exciting, don't they? Like there's been a major tragedy, so it just slips under the radar. He announced that fight against a 40-year-old man who hasn't fought for I don't know how long, who has lost twice to Sexton, and you know, Fury was supposed to fight someone big. There's supposed to be a big announcement. If that was a big announcement, I'm certainly glad something else happened at the weekend to take my mind off it, because that is more disgraceful and does more harm for boxing than anything else. It's a mismatch. You've got a 40-year-old man who hasn't fought for ages, who's driving a taxi around Belfast, fighting a guy who claims that he's world class.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that pretty much sums up everyone's opinion on our site as well. So all it leaves me to do, Frank, is to thank you very much, and hopefully we'll get in touch again soon. We'll do another one of these. And good luck with David, and I'm sure we'll all look forward to his next fight. Thanks again, Frank.
Thank you very much. Just going to say, don't forget we've got one of our young heavyweights at this Saturday in Aberdeen, Gary Cornish, the Highlander, having his sixth fight. You know, so our heavyweight stable is building, and you know, the heavyweight division is interesting, except for Fury running away and sort of not getting involved in a fight that the whole of the British public wanted to see. Fury and Price would have been a great fight after what happened the weekend, and would have brought some credibility back to the sport.
And if you want to